Hello, I'm John Rossi, a touring drummer with a love of all things animal. When I'm on the road, I visit as many zoos, aquariums... Hey, wait a minute. What's going on? Hey, what's going on there? Hello? Hello? We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you Rossifari Zoo news. News you can use from the world of zoos and conservation. Every week, we bring you breaking news and analysis from around the globe, featuring the animals you love and the people who care for them. And here's your anchorman, John Rossi. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to the Rossifari podcast, and specifically Rossifari Zoo News, your look at everything going on in the world of zoos, aquariums, conservation, and general animal weirdness. And so we're going to start off this week by me telling you about a couple things that went on with me this week, including the fact that it was World Ocean Day this week, and I got to go to Aquarium of Niagara for World Ocean Day. Now, most of you who are listening already know that I am a volunteer at Aquarium of Niagara, and so you may think this isn't, the most shocking thing in the world, but I wasn't volunteering there. I really knew that the aquarium was going all out for the day, and so I just had to go and take it in as a spectator, as a fan, as a friend of the aquarium. And I gotta tell y'all, my facility knocked it out of the park. It was so wonderful to see just all of the cool events, and they got so many people into our buildings who were there learning about oceans. And there were a lot of cool events, including, Meet the Island Princess, which looked similar to a character named Moana, but not similar enough to violate any copyright laws. Anyway, and just, some other really cool stuff going on. But one of the things that really stood out to me, there were a lot of education setups that were really well done and everything. But there was so much good conservation messaging. I was particularly pleased to see that every single species that we have that has a SAFE program had signage explaining what SAFE programs are and explaining why that species had a SAFE program. And it was really cool to see that for sea turtles and corals and shark and ray and just all the things. It made me really happy to see the facility that I am most attached to, really thriving in that area. I'm super proud of our education department and just really all of the departments for coming together and creating what was a really fun and really memorable experience, but also just a really conservation focused, mission centric, event that also had a lot of fun and silly, cool stuff. And I got a sticker, and no, there are no pictures of me with the Island Princess. That is her name. There is no other name. Island Princess. So yeah, but it was a really good time. So I just wanted to give props to Aquarium of Niagara for being awesome. And actually, I'll be starting volunteering with the Fish and Invertebrates department there next week, like I mentioned, probably last week on Zoo News. So excited to get started. Other than that, Tuesday's episode featuring Danny Larson and the rest of that team, and also John Simcox from Talon Ridge Raptor Institute, was really well received. I heard from a lot of y'all saying how much you love hearing from Danny and how great she is and how great it was to hear from the team. So don't forget to hop on the socials and go vote for the little Eurasian eagle owl's name that was hand-reared by Danny and the team and then sent off to John at Talon Ridge. It's a really cool way to support that organization, and they clearly brought a lot of excitement to a lot of your lives listening. So go do the thing. It only costs $1 to vote, which is cool. And then last but not least in this section, I don't think I've mentioned this, but I'm going to be playing $1 Million Quartet at Mount Gretna in Pennsylvania. And I'm actually heading down there pretty shortly. To start rehearsals. I'm going to be, just in case you were wondering, I'm going to be drumming and music directing. And actually, a lot of the cast are my people. That's just how I'm going to phrase it. They are my people, including Taylor Gray, who does a lot of the music on here that you hear all the time. So it's a very short run. The actual shows are just July 10th to the 13th and then 17th to the 19th. But if you happen to be in the central Pennsylvania area, you should come and check us out. It's a gorgeous theater. It's outdoor, but there is a roof, so you kind of get the best of both worlds. And there's a really great ice cream shop there called The Jigger Shop. And they have regular food too, but it's a good chance to come and get some ice cream, and they do some really cool root beer on tap, and come see me play the drums with my buddies Taylor and Luke and Jacob and Ken and Justin, all these people that I've worked with for years, and then two rookies. So best of both worlds. So yeah, this is Rossifari Zoo News. It's a crowdsourced news program. You send me things. I say your name at the end of the episode. And don't forget to make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes of this or the interview episodes that come out on Tuesdays. And follow along on the socials at Rossifari, on TikTok at Rossifari Pod, and that you can support the podcast for as little as $3 a month by going to patreon.com/Rossifari. So with all of that said, let's get to it. All right, and so we're going to start off with a headline story this week, and this one is a freaking doozy. We are, yet again, back to talking about the Natural Bridge Zoo. Now, we've talked a lot about the alleged animal abuse at that facility and how the new owner, who is still part of the old team that owned it and is actually the daughter of the old owners. Anyway, the new owner seems to have continued a lot of the, let's say, problematic behaviors with the animals that weren't confiscated. And there's also, they got to keep some of the confiscated animals. We'll get to that in a minute. It's weird. But before we get to that, new court documents have shown some of the way that the zoo worked in the past. And one of the things that they would do is they would ship off baby giraffes to other roadside zoos when they were as young as 2 weeks old, and almost never were they more than 2 months old. Now, normally baby giraffes stay with their mom for at least 15 months. 2 weeks, to be clear, is less than that. And apparently, by taking the babies away, the mother would quickly go back into breeding mode, which would allow the zoo to sell another baby much more quickly than if the baby stayed with mom. And then they could breed mom again, and again, and again. It's gross. And on top of that grossness, there's now a weird legal question about the whole situation. See, it seems that when the state of Virginia seized multiple giraffes from the facility, 3 of the ones that were seized were pregnant mothers. So the question becomes, who owns the baby giraffes? Baby giraffes can fetch up to $250,000 apiece when being sold to other roadside zoos, which is something that Natural Bridge Zoo has taken full advantage of in the way I mentioned above. So the question of ownership is not only important to the state, but it's also important to the zoo because of it being a cash giraffe, and obviously to the animals as well for their well-being. But this is where it gets crazier. Y'all aren't even ready for this. So even though the state has seized some of the giraffes in the giraffe herd, they don't actually have anywhere to put them right now as the legal process is unfolding. So the seized giraffes have still been living at the Natural Bridge Zoo, the place where they were allegedly so abused that they had to be seized. And again, this includes 3 pregnant giraffes. The state told the zoo to notify the state when the giraffes gave birth, but the zoo apparently did not, and now the babies are missing. So a vet eventually got in and examined the mothers and determined that one of the mothers probably miscarried, but the other two, no idea where they are. Yep, giraffes are just missing. Now, while I can't believe the state actually allowed the giraffes to stay at the zoo, they did at least give very specific rules for the zoo to follow, including husbandry rules and also specific rules about not separating calves from mothers, not selling any calves, and other stuff that should have prevented this. But trusting a zoo that you have literally confiscated animals from to do the right thing is a level of trust, or maybe I should say incompetence, that I can't quite wrap my head around. And of course, the new owner, who again was in animal care management under the previous owners, who are her freaking parents, has argued that none of the court orders that were given to Natural Bridge Zoo under the old owners, again, her parents, apply to her because she's a new owner. Despite her being the daughter of, anyway. And despite the orders being clear that they apply to the zoo, regardless of who owns it. That's actually written in these various regulations. So this tactic actually managed to keep inspectors out of the zoo for a couple of days while it worked its way through courts and such. And when the inspectors and vet were finally able to get in and they found out the giraffes were no longer pregnant, they didn't find any baby giraffes there, although they did find afterbirth on one of the giraffe tails, which does not instill in me a lot of confidence in the proper veterinary care being done for these animals, because that's gross. Clean your dang animals after they give birth, maybe. But yeah, so this story obviously is crazy, but it actually gets crazier. See, authorities, when they are taking an animal from a facility, they don't just confiscate all of the animals in a situation like this. First of all, there are only certain animals that certain agencies and authorities even can confiscate. But even beyond that, it's not even decided on a species by species case. Instead, it's done individual animal by individual animal. So, in the case of the giraffes at the zoo, while multiple members of the herd were seized, others were not, as there was no hard evidence of abuse towards those specific animals. And I know, this seems like such a crazy way to do this, as though it's okay to leave some giraffes at a zoo that has been apparently abusing other giraffes in the same herd. But that's how this works, at least in the state of Virginia, and frankly in a lot of places, because animals are, considered property. So here's the fun question for this from a legal standpoint. Who owns the baby giraffes that were inside their mothers when the mothers were confiscated, especially because they were still left at said zoo? Since all the giraffes couldn't be confiscated, and since there is no evidence of abuse to the unborn, now baby animals, you could make the argument that the zoo still owns them legally. But of course, you can obviously also make the argument that the zoo shouldn't own any of these animals, and that since the babies were inside their mothers at the time of the confiscation, the state should own them. There is actually a small amount of legal precedent here. It's not perfect, but a Supreme Court ruling from 1889 determined that if cattle ran away from a farmer and another farmer found said cattle, they could claim it and they could actually keep the cattle, but any calves born to the newly claimed cattle were the property of the original owner. So yeah, a farmer could actually keep a cow that ran away, but if the cow gave birth, it had to give the baby back to the original owner. Animal law gets weird in this country, again, especially since they are, viewed as property, but are also clearly much more than that. So, as a TLDR for y'all, despite the fact that you're not reading this, 2 baby giraffes are missing from the Natural Bridge Zoo in Virginia, and the following things need to be sorted out legally. Number 1, does the new owner still have to follow the rulings aimed at the previous owners? Again, her parents. Number 2, if so, does the zoo or the state own the 2 baby giraffes in question? Number 3, If it's the state, and if the new owner has to follow those rulings, what are the penalties to the zoo for violating said rulings? Number 4, and frankly the most important one, where the heck are the baby giraffes? And number 5, regardless of the first few questions, are there any other laws on the books that are being violated by the zoo apparently moving the giraffes without filing any paperwork? Because that's usually a thing, right? In fact, most of the articles I read about this dove into the history of the animal moves made by the zoo by finding the information in the government forms the zoo had to file to transport giraffes and stuff, because that's how that works. So yeah, this whole thing, the Natural Bridge Zoo situation, continues to be an absolute mess. And this is a big part of why I get so upset about roadside zoos and preach accreditation so much, even though not all zoos are it's not like they're either accredited or evil. But stuff like this can't happen at accredited facilities without a whole lot of people being involved and a whole lot more work to cover it up. You can never say never, but knowing what I know about SSPs and transfer plans and such, and tags and all those things, I can't see a way something like this could happen, even if someone at an AZA facility wanted it to. It would take a whole lot of people working together as one big conspiracy. And I think this is the kind of thing that fuels so many people in the anti-zoo crowd, even though most of us in the pro-zoo crowd also hate stuff like this. The word zoo is used for the best zoos in the world and for the worst. It creates quite the challenge for people who don't understand nuance, and that's frankly something that seems to be lost more and more nowadays on people. So I'm super curious to see how this all plays out, and it does not leave me feeling warm and fuzzy. But as of now, the Natural Bridge Zoo is still open. They still have giraffes there, including some that are owned by the state, and nobody knows where the babies are. I mean, I'm guessing somebody does, but they're not telling. I'll update if I hear anything more. But yeah, that brings us to our births for the week. The National Aviary in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, has welcomed a demoiselle crane colt. This is the second one in as many weeks that has been born at the facility. Both eggs were actually sent to the facility through the SSP, and adoptive mother Daphne is doing a great job with her new little one. I love the idea of just sending eggs. That's like for SSP transfers instead of animals. That's a really cool way to do that, I think. I don't know why they don't do that with like red pandas and stuff. Oh, right. No eggs. Anyway, there's a new crowned lemur at the Brandywine Zoo, which is healthy. The sex is currently undetermined. And actually, the crowned lemur will be on mom, who will be visible on Habitat from 10:30 to 1 most days if you want to go see a baby lemlet. There is a new Grant's zebra foal at Cape May County Zoo. Born to parents Lydia and Ziggy, this is the first male born there in recent memory, so that's pretty exciting. Our great friends at Elmwood Park Zoo have welcomed a new male Reeves muntjac. Parents are Violet and Colby, and if you don't know, Reeves muntjacs are really tiny, adorable little deer, and because they're so tiny, their babies are really tiny and really cute. If you happen to go to Elmwood Park Zoo, you may notice a lot of additional fencing around the muntjac habitat, and that is to give the family a little bit of privacy, but the baby's in there and very, very cute. So, I recently visited Sedgwick County Zoo, and I got to see their 2 baby elephants. Well, now there are 3. Mom Arusi has given birth after 651 days of gestation. And if you remember from the Zoo News interview we did about this, there's actually still another elephant calf waiting to be born. So if that continues to go well, there will end up being 4 baby elephants at Sedgwick County Zoo, which I cannot wait for. And speaking of large numbers of births, The Bronx Zoo is having another amazing birthing season for Turkmenian markhors. The herd at the zoo has welcomed 11 kids this season. Markhors are one of the largest members of the genus Capra, which is the genus goats fall under. So these are like big kind of mountainy goats. They're very cool animals. Markhors are very impressive. And now there are 11 new ones at the Bronx. They have a huge herd, but still, that's crazy. And then we're actually going to end the birth section and start our deaths section kind of with these next two stories, because honestly, they're both. Buttonwood Park Zoo has announced the birth of 2 beaver kits. The little ones are named JJ and Whittle. Sadly, Justin, their father, recently passed away due to a pulmonary abscess. He passed away before the new babies were born, but did help their mother prepare the nest before he passed. Mom is doing great taking care of the little ones, but Justin is obviously very missed. And then the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago recently announced that a new dolphin calf was born to mom, Allie. At first, the bottlenose dolphin calf looked healthy, but on Thursday, just a few days after the announcement on Saturday, the zoo announced that the baby had passed away. Despite all of the early signs being positive, in a 24-hour period, the dolphin's health declined quickly, as is often the case for newborn dolphins, both in human care and in the wild. Trainers are making sure to give Allie lots of love and attention, and I know they are just devastated after waiting a year for the little one to show up. So, yeah, very sad, and I am sending all my love to the team. Continuing with our deaths, Birmingham Wildlife Conservation Park has said goodbye to Mo, the red panda. Mo was almost 13 years old and lived at the park for over a decade and was a particularly beloved animal. Keepers, fans, you name it, Mo was hugely loved, and that is a presence that is greatly missed in Birmingham. Mystic Aquarium has said goodbye to Stretch, the common snapping turtle. Now, Stretch lived at the aquarium for 15 years, and in that time was used to educate so many people about this animal they can find right in their backyard that's a little scary looking at first, but is actually a really amazing creature when you get to know it. Happy Hollow Park and Zoo has said goodbye to Sophia, the jaguar, who passed from kidney disease at the age of 21. Now, that age actually made her one of the oldest female jaguars in the AZA, and she spent nearly her entire life at Happy Hollow. So that is a presence that is greatly missed, and a big hole that is going to be left in a lot of hearts there. Sending love to the team. And then last but not least in this section, Lou, which is short for Lucifer and is spelled L-U, is a hippo that lived at Ellie Schiller Homosassa Springs Wildlife State Park in Florida. And unfortunately, Lou has passed away. Lou lived at the park for over 60 years, and he is remembered by generations of Floridians and tourists alike. The entire Florida State Parks community misses Lucifer. That was just fun to say. I'm sorry. Anyway, moving on from births and deaths, we do get to the rest of our zoo news section. And we're going to start with a fascinating story that went viral this week from the Guatemala Zoo. The zoo there features a mixed species exhibit with Asian elephants and antelopes, and a video featured one of the elephants pacing around a pool, making trumpeting noises, and clearly trying to get the attention of a zookeeper that was working in the habitat with the animals in a free contact situation. The man looks at the elephant, who then seems to turn her attention back to the pool, and the man follows her trunk and sees an antelope drowning in the pool. The keeper quickly runs to the pool, grabs the antelope by its horn, and pulls it towards the edge of the water where it's able to grab its footing and get out, saving its life. Yay! This also seems to calm the elephant down significantly, although the elephant is seen following the antelope for a little bit, just appearing to check in on it before wandering off again on its own. The zoo not only rewarded the worker who saved the antelope with a certificate, but also gave a trompita, which is the name of the elephant, the treat of some extra watermelon, carrots, and peanuts for her help. Nice job, team. And speaking of fascinating, The Smithsonian's National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute is going to be welcoming some fascinating animals soon. Critically endangered Arabian leopards will be joining the zoo on a loan from the Royal Commission for Al-Ula of Saudi Arabia, known as the RCU. There are roughly 120 of these animals in the wild that live in small, isolated groups in Yemen and Oman. It is believed to be extinct in the wild in Saudi Arabia, where the species used to thrive. The RCU has been managing the breeding population of the species in human care since 2020 and has had great success, more than doubling the managed population in 5 years. By sending some of the cats to the Smithsonian, the RAU is hoping to both teach the Smithsonian about successful breeding of this particular species and to learn from the Smithsonian's extensive experience breeding cheetahs and clouded leopards and other cats, but also to learn about the incredible conservation work done by the Smithsonian, including multiple reintroductions of animals such as black-footed ferrets that they've been a part of. All of this will help to continue to grow the insurance population of the species while also working towards the goal of reintroduction of members of the managed population back into the wild in their native ranges. Absolutely incredible stuff. None of the articles that I saw about this said whether they would be on exhibit or not. My guess is not that they will be at the Front Royal campus, but still cool to have them in the country. And I need to talk to some of my friends at that campus and see if I can't go see this incredibly rare animal. A brand new sea life aquarium has opened at the Legoland Florida Resort in Orlando. The new Sea Life features over 3,000 animals, including a 180-degree tunnel, just like many of the Sea Lifes do. And it's really cool that you can go see it while you are in Legoland. To be clear, they are real animals. They are not made of bricks. But yeah, if you're in Orlando now, there are actually multiple opportunities to see animals there. You can go to that Sea Life. I assume the other Sea Life down there, the freestanding one, is still open. The obviously Disney's Animal Kingdom, and there's the whole ocean section with the Nemo stuff as well. There's a lot. My point is there are a lot of animals down there. If you want to go down and see some parky parks, but also get some animal time. Speaking of parks, but a different kind, Sequoia Park Zoo has announced that it will be home to a black bear soon, and it's an animal with a special story. Cub 24, as it's currently known, was found critically ill in the wild, where it was just 20 pounds and found nearly hairless. He also had bacterial and fungal skin infections, ringworm, and deep ear infections in both ears. Amazingly, with all that going on, he was rehabilitated effectively, but the state of California has determined that he was unreleasable because it seemed unlikely he'd be able to fully grow a proper undercoat to keep him warm in winter. The little one will be transferred to Sequoia Park Zoo as a forever home, which is just, the latest illustration of how good zoos are sanctuaries for animals. And, by good zoos, I mostly mean the ones that don't lose baby giraffes. Allegedly. And one other cool new species at a zoo announcement. SeaWorld Orlando has announced that on June 14th, emperor penguins will be joining the facility. You can't see emperor penguins anywhere outside of SeaWorld in the entire Western Hemisphere, so I really need to get back down to Orlando to see these incredible birds, as well as obviously visit the new Sea Life. I recently got to hang out with some king penguins recently, which are the second biggest penguin species, and I cannot even imagine what it's going to be like to spend time with emperors, because those birds get big. Like, king penguins are big, but emperor penguins, they are big, and I can't wait to see that. I think it's going to be really awe-inspiring. And that brings us to Stereotypical Animal Podcast theme song. Here to bring you to conservation news. We start off with an exciting bit of news about wolverines. The animal, not the Marvel character. Anyway, the species was classified as endangered in Finland in the 1980s before eventually being hunted to extinction in that area, despite, having protections because of being endangered. Land conservation efforts around the habitat of the animals, combined with stricter enforcement for protected species, has led to a resurgence of the species in Finland recently, with new technology being used to discover that the species has returned to the area. Satellite and aerial images have confirmed that wolverines have been moving back into protected lands in the country from neighboring countries, marking a huge comeback for the animal. Love a good conservation win like that. Actually, that's going to be our theme for conservation news this week. We only have good conservation news stories this week, which makes me really happy. Okay, so the next one. One of the weirdest things on the surface about animal conservation is the positive effect of removing or even killing certain animals in an area. And of course, I'm talking about invasive species, and there are many reasons these animals should be removed when they cause problems. But I remember when I first started learning about conservation, how surprised I was at the idea of removing and often euthanizing whole populations of animals simply because they were invasive. But it really works, and the latest evidence of that comes from Yosemite National Park. Over the course of 6 years, ecologists removed over 16,000 American bullfrogs, an invasive species that breeds super effectively, from the park. The particular reason for this removal was the northwestern pond turtle, a species that is outcompeted by American bullfrogs to an embarrassing degree. The turtles basically can't survive when bullfrogs are around because they will use all the resources the turtles need. And after removing the bullfrogs from the park, pond turtle populations started to explode again. So that's great news for the turtles and the overall ecosystem of the park, even if it sucks for the frogs. There is always a part of me that feels really bad for the invasive species, because despite that terminology, it's not like they invaded. It wasn't a hostile takeover. Most of the time, it was stupid people bringing the animals to a place they shouldn't be. So feel bad for them, but at the end of the day, we got to keep our ecology balanced, right? Ecosystem balanced. Whatever, you know what I mean. Anyway, moving on from that story. Evolutionary biologists have noticed something interesting about the lizards of Puerto Rico. Lizards are evolving significantly faster in urban areas there than in the countryside. Urban lizards are able to run faster and evade predators more effectively than the lizards in rural areas. Scientists are unsure as to why this is happening, but they are studying the trend to try to figure it out. If I had a guess, and it's just spitballing here, but I would assume it has something to do with the number of humans, because just in general, humans and animals don't get along really well, and the way that animal species compete with threats is evolution. But again, just spitballing, and I'm sure the scientists would also say that it is their assumption, but they're being good scientists and doing the science first before putting that out into the public, whereas I'm a podcaster, so I can just spew crap. Yay. And then 2 more stories in conservation news this week, and they're both good news for the oceans. There are 2 new marine protected areas that have been named in the Western Indian Ocean off the coast of Zanzibar. The government there not only made the decision to protect these areas that are home to coral reefs, seagrasses, mangroves, sea turtles, sharks, rays, and more, but did so after consulting the local community for 15 months, getting input from over 4,000 citizens before moving forward. This commitment to the community ensures a sense of ownership of the MPAs by the community and shows that it is possible to connect local stakeholders to conservation efforts in a meaningful way. And Samoa has announced that 100% of its oceans, 100%, will be under protection or sustainable management by the year 2030. Now, both of these are huge deals because these are areas that rely heavily on fishing for income, which will still be able to be done, but it will be managed and it will be sustainable, which actually ensures the long life of the industry as well as helping to save the ocean. But it does ask the stakeholders, ask the fishermen, ask the companies that are involved, but also don't forget, in a lot of these places, it's not huge fishing trawls with giant nets and stuff that are doing the thing. It's like local fishermen making a living and feeding their family and stuff. So, while sustainable is actually the best way to do that for them long term, short term, it can affect things and it can be scary. So both nations getting their people on board is a big freaking deal and shows that can work. And I love it so much. I love having good news about and for oceans. So yay that.
Animal, animal, animal holidays. Animal, animal, animal holidays.
All right, so nothing really popped out to me for other news this week. And honestly, I just found out I have to do jury duty tomorrow, the day this episode drops. I'm heading off to jury duty. The way this works in New York, I don't know how this works elsewhere, but is you get jury duty for the week, but you just check in online every day to find out if you're called or not. And I have not been called, and it super looked like I wasn't going to. My number was very far down. All the way through Thursday, it was like, yeah, no, it's probably not going to happen. And then tonight, I got the email that was like, have your butt here tomorrow morning. So I'm going to have my butt there tomorrow morning. So I'm wrapping this up a little early. But that does bring us to our animal holidays for the week. And June is Zoo and Aquarium Month, World Oceans Month, and Orca Month. And then the individual days this week. The 13th is National Pigeon Day. The 14th is Sea Cucumber Day and National Skunk Day. The 16th is World Sea Turtle Day and also launches Pollinator Week. The 17th is World Croc Day. The 18th is Veterinary Appreciation Day. Unless you're like me, then every day is Veterinary Appreciation Day. And the 19th is World Albatross Day. And those are your animal holidays for the week. All right, so there you have it, folks. Another episode of Rossifari Zoo News. And I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to all of my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, who is also here for stickers, and Kevin Williams. Y'all should have gotten your last 2 months stickers by now. Let me know if you did not. I actually haven't gotten mine yet, so I'm excited to see them. I'm hoping they will show up tomorrow. They look so good. I just can't wait. But anyway, I would also like to say thank you to all of the people who contributed stories this week, including Anya Keene, Colleen Linehan, Kim Cooley-Croninger, Carrie Kirkpatrick, Kevin Williams, Emily Rockbuck, Maddie Patz, Marianne Rossi, Ken Tryon, Dr. Natalie Taco, Barbara Bennett, Dr. Laura Schenk, Amanda Berg, Ali Malensky, Kay Malensky,
The Malenskys.
Jay Meredith, Sam Evans, Dr. Zoe Rossi, Elizabeth Chum, and Yoshioka, Crystal Chapman, and Kristen Dickey. Thank you so much for contributing this week. And as always, if I didn't get to everything, there's time next week. I gotta go do jury stuff. Okay, I'll be back on Tuesday with a brand new interview episode. Woo! But until then, remember, friends, the words newsy credits backwards are Steider Kiswen. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo. Florida resort in... Oh my God, what's the name of that place? The one with Disney. Orlando, that's the one.